Hello, I'm Nathan, and I'm the Education Coordinator at the Nooksack Salmon Enhancement Association, or NSEA. Thank you for joining us on our virtual field trip today. We're here along Terrell Creek in Birch Bay State Park. As we begin, I'd like to start by acknowledging that the land that we are standing on is the traditional and sacred lands of the Coast Salish people, specifically Lummi Nation and Nooksack tribe. Our indigenous neighbors are the traditional stewards of this land since time immemorial. As we learn today on this virtual field trip, may we continue to reflect on and understand the importance of this land and work together for shared stewardship of our waterways. Today, we're going to test how healthy Terrell Creek is for the species of salmon that live here. There are two species of Pacific salmon that live in Terrell Creek, and they need the water to be cold, clean, and clear to be able to survive. We call those the 3 C's. To test Terrell Creek, we're going to become scientists who make observations, perform experiments, ask questions, and draw conclusions on the results that we get. To start, let's make some observations about Terrell Creek to assess how healthy you think it is for those 2 species of Pacific salmon that live here. Let's start by looking for large woody debris. Large woody debris are logs or trees that might have fallen in the creek, and these provide pools, which are nice resting spots for adult salmon as they're migrating, and they also provide resting places and cover for juvenile salmon or fry so that they can hide from predators. And if we look around here, I see some nice examples of large woody debris that are along the banks of Terrell Creek. Next, we'll look at the bottom of our stream. And if you take a look at the bottom, we're looking for gravel, which is ideal for salmon. Adult salmon will lay their eggs in nests called redds, which they dig in the gravel at the bottom of the creek. And I do see some gravel at the bottom of Terrell Creek. While we're looking in the creek, let's look at the current and see if the water is moving. Moving water helps to churn oxygen into the water, which you'll learn about a little bit later at the water quality station. And this enables salmon to be able to breathe while they are underwater. I see a little bit of a current, but I don't see a lot of moving water. We would call this relatively stagnant. The next impacts we're going to actually listen for are human impacts, and that is roads, cars, and buildings. So if we take a little time to listen, we're listening for evidence of cars and roads. And I do hear some off in the distance and see some buildings that are close to Terrell Creek. So we'll check off human impacts in the form of roads, cars, and buildings. Next, we'll look for another human impact, which is garbage. Garbage, as many of you can probably guess, is really bad for salmon and can cause them to not be able to survive in creeks. And as we look around in the riparian zone of Terrell Creek, I don't see a lot of garbage on the ground, which is actually a good sign for salmon. Another evidence of humans are foam, also called eutrophication. This is typically on the surface of the creek. And in this case, we're looking not for bubbles, but we're looking more for what looks like soap floating on the top of the water. And it looks relatively clean. I don't see any evidence of foam. This can mean that there are a lot of nutrients or pollution that are getting into the water. As we move along, we're looking for plants. Now we're talking about the riparian zone, the area of land that is bordering Terrell Creek. Plants help to provide us with those 3 C's. They help to filter out pollution, they help to provide shade, which is also on our checklist, and they help to prevent erosion. And as we're looking along Terrell Creek here, you can see evidence of plants, which are also providing shade for Terrell Creek, keeping the water cold, clean, and clear. And finally, we'll listen one more time for evidence of animals. A lot of these animals rely on the riparian zone and the creek for their own survival, and in many cases, these animals are connected to salmon on the food chain. So if we take a little bit of time to listen, I hear some birds in the background. So I think we can say that there are animals present in our riparian zone. Now that we've made some observations of Terrell Creek and the riparian zone, it's time to make a hypothesis, which is a prediction on how healthy you think Terrell Creek is for the salmon species that are living there. Do you think that it is excellent, fair, or poor for salmon? So take some time to make a hypothesis, and if you can, write it down, because we will visit this again at the end of our virtual field trip.